Tremaine.
Mr Speaker, at 7:18 p.m. this evening, just before we resumed in the House, the Honourable Tim Grosser released a press release. And that press release says the OECD ranks New Zealand's service sector amongst the most open. The previous Speaker talked about the importance of a green and smart economy. Well, Mr Speaker, the service sector is very much a part of that economy, and at the heart of the service sector are financial transactions which drive that economy. This bill, Mr Speaker, takes a step forward to improve the financial transactions through contract law, and I think in that regard it does make a not insignificant step forward in that regard. Mr Speaker, the Honourable Tim Grosser's press release says that the New Zealand's service sector ranked amongst the most open in a recent survey of 40 countries conducted by the OECD. He says that the OECD's New Services Trade Restrictive Index aims to quantify the restrictiveness of policy measures. Now, so what we're talking here about is a change in policy which actually improves the ability to conduct business online and in the service sector. Mr Speaker, this survey adds to a number of international comparators that have recently been received by this country, ranking us globally as one of the best countries in the world. And that, Mr Speaker, makes for an exciting future for New Zealanders, particularly young New Zealanders in this country. So, Mr Speaker, I rise to speak on this third reading of the Electronic Transactions Contract Formation Amendment Bill. Can I congratulate Paul Goldsmith for having his bill drawn from the ballot and being able to progress it through the House before the rise in Parliament this term. You'll be aware, Mr Speaker, that the government set four priorities, four objectives for this term of government. They were to return the country's books to surplus, to rebuild that beautiful city of Christchurch, to build a stronger and more competitive economy, and to build better public services. The government's undertaken hundreds, if not thousands, of initiatives to take positive steps towards achieving these objectives. The reality is that there is not one silver bullet that will achieve these goals. However, the combination of many individual initiatives, such as Mr Goldsmith's, together make significant progress towards lifting the bar in New Zealand and building a brighter future for our country. Mr Speaker, the government has made huge progress over this term, and this bill adds in a not insignificant way to that progress. To reflect on that progress, the government will release a budget which charts a surplus in the 2014-15 year. This is a huge achievement in itself and the result of many different initiatives such as Mr Goldsmith's. At the same time, the Australian government will release a budget which paints a very different picture of their government's accounts. Through tough decisions we have made over the last 5 years, we now have choices to extend funding, not to contract it. The announcements just this week in regards to a $22 million increase for budgeting services, a $10.4 million increase of funding for providers who support victims of sexual violence, and a $20 million increase of funding to apprenticeships are no accident. They are the result of a very considered approach to bringing our budget back to surplus and thereby providing us with choices going forward. The government has made huge progress with the rebuild of Christchurch. Literally thousands of large and small initiatives have been delivered to progress the rebuild. And just yesterday, the government announced the $3,000 incentive to 1,000 beneficiaries to aid them in securing jobs in Christchurch to help with the rebuild. We are committed to that rebuild and to seeing it through. Mr Speaker, we've made huge progress with our third goal, to build a stronger and more competitive economy. The Business Growth Agenda has provided the foundation for hundreds of big and small initiatives to advance that objective. Outside of the BGA, there have been thousands of initiatives by businesses, local government and many individual New Zealanders to help make the New Zealand economy grow. Thank you to all those people. Paul Goldsmith's bill makes, as I've said, a small but significant contribution to making the boat go faster. The Electronic Transactions Contract Formation Bill
clarifies the legal position on the time at which a contract is formed if the acceptance of the offer is sent by electronic communication. The reality is that we now live in a digital age with more and more contracts being offered and accepted through digital mediums. This bill advances the law in this area, once again modernising our economy by improving the productivity and competitiveness of our nation. The results of the wider suite of initiatives, including Mr Goldsmith's, have been stunning, with New Zealand now showing huge signs of recovery. Our growth rate now puts us amongst the best performing economies in the Western world. Interest rates remain at all-time lows, inflation remains within the target band, business and consumer confidence are at record highs, and employment continues to grow. As we have heard from Minister Joyce today, manufacturing has been in expansion for the last 18 months. And in just the last few days, we've seen very positive news about record highs in exports and employment growth, with 68,000 new jobs just last year alone. Most particularly, and a huge sign of the strength of our economy, has been the turnaround in migration numbers. New Zealand has had net positive migration to New Zealand of in excess of 30,000, and a huge turnaround in the numbers migrating across to Australia. Young New Zealanders will always want to explore the world. I have no doubt about that. My own children, I am sure, will want to explore the world, and I welcome that. But with this government, they are starting to return in their droves. Mr Speaker, this, if not anything else, is the proof of a strong and a competitive economy in action. Kiwis returning in their droves and foreigners lining up to get work visas. Mr Speaker, if it weren't for all the hard work that has gone in to achieve this, some would start calling us the lucky country, not Australia. But luck has nothing to do with it. Millions of Kiwis are contributing to this effort, and today Paul Goldsmith takes another small step. The Electronic Transactions Contract Formation Bill also links strongly with our fourth objective in government, to build better public services. For the first time ever, we've seen a Prime Minister not just talk about improved public services, but holding the government to account on key targets. From health to law and order to education, the public service has been held to account to deliver better services. As a result of this, we've now more children than ever in early childhood education, more teenagers passing the NCEA with significant improvements in Māori and Pacific Island communities. We have more elective surgeries than ever before, significantly better access to cancer treatment and hugely improved immunisation levels, once again particularly in Māori and Pacific Island communities. And in law and order, our police have delivered the lowest crime rate in 25 years. Once again, my thanks go out to the entire public service for their commitment to delivering better services in very tight fiscal times. One of the public service targets, which has a lower profile, which is extremely important to a modern economy, is Result Area 10. This public service target requires that 70% of New Zealanders' most common transactions with government will be completed in a digital environment by 2017. Kiwis are increasingly turning to their digital devices for information and services. They want their government to be available online. They don't want to wait in queues. They don't want to have to replicate their details time and time again. Paul Goldsmith's bill will assist with the achievement of this target because it clarifies the legal position around when a contract is formed online. It modernises the law for our burgeoning digital economy. At the heart of Result Area 10 target is the Department of Internal Affairs led by Colin MacDonald and Tim Ockleshaw. Central to DIA's delivery is the government's ICT strategy and action plan and its digital by default strategy. It's an exciting strategy that leads agencies across government to continuous improvement in their engagement with citizens over the internet. One of the best examples of this has been the rollout of passports online, with over 100,000 Kiwis having renewed their passports online within a 3-day turnaround period. This is an incredible result and sets the benchmark for many other government services across New Zealand. These initiatives will be leveraged by yet another digital initiative, Real Me, which is a national solution to establishing identity online. Mr Speaker, across New Zealand, Kiwis are stepping up to drive a better country for all of us. Today, Mr Goldsmith takes a small step to achieving that and taking the country forward as well. I congratulate him on his bill and thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. Thank you.
Andrew Williams.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I take a brief call on behalf of New Zealand First on this private member's bill.